The lawyer didn't even look at me when he finished reading the will. "The penthouse in Santa Monica goes to your son," he said, nodding toward my brother. "The industrial property on Alameda Street, the warehouse, goes to your daughter." My brother smiled before the sentence was even done. "A warehouse?" he repeated, laughing under his breath. "That's perfect." I felt every eye in the room slide toward me. He leaned back in his chair, smug and relaxed. "Guess that's fitting. I get the skyline, you get the storage unit." A few cousins chuckled. No one corrected him. "It's basically a junkyard," he added, "but hey, trash belongs with trash." The word hung in the air longer than it should have. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I simply nodded once. "Fine," I said quietly. "Then I'll move into the warehouse." Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you are listening from. My brother insisted on giving me a tour of what I'd lost. The penthouse was all glass walls and white marble, sunlight spilling across imported furniture. "This," he said, gesturing toward the balcony view of the ocean, "is what Mom and Dad wanted for me." Then he drove me downtown. The warehouse sat in a forgotten industrial strip, wedged between rusted fences and silent loading docks. The brick was cracked. The paint had peeled into gray scars. Dust coated the windows so thick they looked blind. "Good luck," he said lightly. "Try not to get tetanus." That night, I unlocked the rolling door myself. Hot air, stale and unmoving, swallowed me whole. I stepped inside alone. They thought they had buried me. Growing up, my brother was the headline. Straight teeth, loud confidence, the kind of charm that filled a room before he did. My parents called him the future. They said he had vision. I had spreadsheets. While he posed for photos at business dinners, I stayed home organizing receipts. I filed property taxes. I renewed insurance policies. I tracked payments on assets neither of them bothered to understand. Publicly, everything carried his name. Privately, I kept everything from collapsing. The warehouse had always been described as a liability property, a leftover investment from years ago, too expensive to renovate, too useless to maintain. So they ignored it. They never inspected it, never audited it, never stepped inside. Standing there in the heat and silence, I understood something clearly. They never once looked inside. That was their first mistake. The first night, I couldn't sleep, not because of fear, but because of the sound. It was faint, low, constant, a hum. At first, I blamed the wind pushing against the metal siding, but when I stepped outside, the alley was silent. The noise was coming from inside. The next morning, I checked the mail slot near the office door. A stack of unopened envelopes waited there, addressed to the estate. Utility bills. I opened the most recent one. Electricity usage. High, consistent, uninterrupted. The graph wasn't jagged like normal buildings. It was a straight line across the page. Heavy consumption, 24 hours a day. That wasn't lighting. That wasn't neglect. I found the breaker panel along the back wall. One switch was warm. The numbers didn't match the story. The warm breaker was labeled Zone 3. I followed the conduit along the ceiling until it disappeared behind a stack of leaning plywood sheets in the far corner. They didn't belong there. The rest of the warehouse was chaos, rusted shelves, broken pallets, but this corner looked staged. I dragged the plywood aside. Behind it wasn't brick. It was drywall, newer, cleaner, poorly painted to blend in. My pulse slowed instead of racing. Someone had built a wall. I found a crowbar near the old tool bench and pressed it into the seam. The drywall cracked with a sharp pop. I pulled again. Cold air exploded against my face. Not cool air, conditioned air, precise, controlled. I widened the opening and stepped through. Inside, the temperature dropped instantly. Industrial dehumidifiers lined the walls, their green lights blinking in quiet rhythm. The hum was louder here, steady and alive. Rows of wooden crates stood in perfect alignment, sealed, labeled, untouched by dust. This wasn't junk. It felt like a vault. This wasn't junk. I pulled the nearest crate forward. The wood was stamped with a faded shipping mark and a customs seal from 20 years ago. Inside, foam casing. Inside that, canvas. I peeled it back slowly. The signature hit first. Mark Rothko. My breath caught, but I didn't gasp. I checked the lower corner again. Authentication stamp. Gallery inventory number. Matching serial documentation tucked in a plastic sleeve beneath the frame. I moved to the second crate. Jean-Michel Basquiat. Original. Numbered. Insured at some point. The old valuation sheet still attached. This wasn't decoration. This was investment grade, museum-level inventory. The climate control made sense now. The flat power usage. The hidden wall. I opened a third container. Sealed tubes of archival documents, purchase contracts, offshore transfer papers. My heart pounded, not from greed, from understanding. They hadn't left me a liability. They had left me leverage. I closed the crate carefully and looked around the room again. I was standing in a vault. I didn't call my brother. I called a professional. An independent fine art appraiser recommended by a logistics broker I once worked with. I sent photos first. Signatures, serial numbers, the old gallery seals. There was a long pause on the phone. "Where exactly are you?" he asked. "In my warehouse." Another silence. He requested close-ups of the Mark Rothko and Jean-Michel Basquiat signatures, then the climate system, then the storage conditions. His voice changed. "These need to be secured immediately." He gave me a conservative estimate. "Assuming authentication checks out, you're looking at 8 to 10 million, conservative." I didn't react. I thanked him, scheduled private verification, called a lawyer next. Then I remembered something. My brother had told me last week he planned to sell the entire warehouse property for $500,000. He thought he was unloading junk. He had no idea what was behind the wall. The next morning, my brother called. "I've got a buyer," he said. "Industrial developer. We're dumping that warehouse fast." He sounded relieved, almost proud. He emailed the draft agreement, standard asset liquidation language. One clause caught my attention. Seller waives claim to all interior contents deemed hazardous, abandoned, or without declared value. He laughed. "It's just junk clearance." I didn't correct him. I had already retained counsel, filed documentation establishing sole ownership of the structure and all contents under the original estate division. Before closing, I arranged secure removal, insured transport, sealed inventory logs, documented chain of custody. Then I sent him the signed copy. He rushed. He skimmed. He had signed it without reading. Closing day arrived with forced confidence. My brother smirked when he saw me. "Enjoy your half," he said. "Maybe fix the roof." I slid a single document across the table. Certified insurance valuation. He scanned it once, then again. The number wasn't in thousands. It wasn't in hundreds of thousands. It was 8 figures. My attorney calmly clarified. The contents were legally transferred prior to sale. The contract is binding. Silence replaced sarcasm. No shouting, no drama. Just a slow realization settling in. The color drained from his face. I didn't sell the warehouse. I renovated it. The vault became climate-controlled storage for private collectors. The front became a restoration studio. Brick cleaned, windows replaced, sign installed. For the first time, my name stood on something solid. I even restored our parents' old house quietly, not for revenge, but for closure. I never called my brother. I didn't need to. They gave him the penthouse. They gave me the warehouse. They just never looked behind the wall. And sometimes, that's where everything changes. If you stayed until the end, there's another story waiting.